It's time for another round of
PatGPT.
PatGPT is brought to you by FOMO Sapiens, the podcast for entrepreneurial thinkers. It's the show where I, Patrick J. McGinnis, share some of my own entrepreneurial thinking in the form of inspiration, practical ideas, and knowledge that you can use at work and in your daily life. Our topic today is how to crowdsource creativity. All right, ready to go. PatGPT, start generating. Now, here's the thing about this topic. As you know, our season theme is the power of creativity. And I was thinking about that in the context of the creative process. Because as I've said before many a time, you've heard it here and you will hear it again. I was very creative as a kid. And then the world beat it out of me, sadly, which is kind of crazy. But I think that happens to many of us. As children, we are encouraged to be creative. It's safe to be creative. You can make up crazy stuff, like hang out with a 4-year-old. They're all over the place. But if you do that stuff as an adult, obviously, most of the time, people do not appreciate it. What's ironic, of course, is that some of the most creative people are some of the most successful people, because once you're expected to be creative and people appreciate that about you, then they just want more and more. So if you're a writer or a filmmaker or whatever, a musician, or somebody in the ad world, creativity is loved and respected. If you are somebody in finance, listen, there are a lot of creativity in finance, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot harder to step out of line and push back and be creative. The rewards for that are unclear at times. So that is why we lose the ability to create and be creative. And I am really interested in thinking about how we can get back to that place. And so why I wanted to talk about crowdsourcing creativity is that as I re-engage with my creativity, I recognize that, listen, I'm not equally creative in all areas. Like some things I do really well. Some things we all do really well, really creative about those things, and other things, not a chance. And so it's important to recognize that you don't have to be really, really creative in all areas. You can actually rely on other people, because there are people around you in your life or on the internet who have skills that you do not have, that are creative in nature, that you can tap into in a million different ways. You don't have to do it alone. I think that's really important. And so today's PatGPT is going to talk about 5 ways to do that. We will talk about that right after the break.
FOMO.
All right, PatGPT still generating on how to crowdsource creativity. I'm going to start with number 1. This is more on the personal level, and it's about how to tap into the people around you, okay? How to outsource to your friends, to phone a friend. And I'll give you an example of this, naming this podcast. So when I launched this podcast, I didn't know what to call it. I was thinking the FOMO show, FOMO world. I had no idea. And I started to just ask a bunch of people for ideas, and I put it on the internet. I remember I did, I think, a Facebook post back when people still used to do that. It was 2018, for goodness sake, saying, who has good ideas for show names? Here's what I'm thinking about. Does it spur ideas? And that generated a bunch of new ideas. So then I put them all on the list, and then people voted. And so I used the crowd, as it were, which is my social media following, to get people to give me ideas and to give me feedback. And then I called people and I presented it, like having coffee with somebody. I'd say, what do you think of these names? So I would just go around and poll people to get ideas for names, ideas for feedback, stuff like that, really phone the friend. And it was a very powerful way, not only to come up with fresh ideas, but also to avoid indecision. That can get so tricky doing that. So number 1 is phone a friend, outsource to your friends. Number 2 is a variation on a theme, but it's a little different. And this has to do with writing books, what I used when I wrote my books, but now I use it for everything too, which is what I call Michael Lewising something. Now, why Michael Lewis? If you ever read Michael Lewis, Liar's Poker, The Blind Side, a million books like that, The Big Short, he's an incredible writer. And what I love about Michael Lewis is he just interviews a bunch of smart people, and then he synthesizes their smart ideas into something bigger, where he integrates his thinking and then uses the smart thinking of other people in order to either bring out new ideas or to illustrate things. And so when I wrote my books, but also you can do this with anything really, like you could do it with a design of a product, for example. Just interview smart people who understand the topic and learn as much as you can from them. Then put their ideas in a blender with yours and come together and have something even better when you combine them. Of course, giving these people credit. Like when somebody gives me a good idea, of course I credit them and say, I learned this from somebody, because you just don't want to be taking people's ideas. They won't share them with you if you take their ideas, right? Next time you call, they're going to say, no, thank you. I'm going to talk to Adam Grant instead. So Michael Lewising an idea is a powerful way to develop something new by talking to people with relevant knowledge. Number 3, this is a little bit more evolved on number 1 and really works well with companies that have tremendous reach on social media. And this is social media campaigns. This is getting people to submit ideas along a theme, whether it's design, content, anything like that. Just the idea is, hey, we have this thing we're working on. Can you participate in some way in what we're doing? And oftentimes there will be some sort of a reward or prize or something, a benefit to the person who takes the time. It's one thing when you're just asking your friends for help naming your podcast or people who, maybe engage with you. But when you're doing something as a company, if you have a following, you have an engaged fan base, but you want to offer them a reward as well. So it's a really powerful way to not only learn from people who are engaged with what you do, but also get them excited and invested in what you are developing for them. Very powerful stuff. Companies do it all the time. There was this really interesting campaign from Doritos, Crash the Super Bowl, where fans created their own commercials and the winning ads were aired during the Super Bowl. That kind of thing is super cool. You can do that in a million different ways. You could do that at a restaurant. Like, say you're a restaurant, like crowdsource a dish, ask people to submit what they want you to cook, and then you give the winner free dinner. I mean, there's a million ways to play that, but it just creates excitement and you learn and you come up with great ideas, break out of your box of uncreative thinking. Number 4, this one I really love. Crowdsourcing platforms. I'm talking things like 99 Designs, right? I love 99 Designs. When you want a logo, listen, there are better places to get a logo, but you go on there, you kind of tell them what you want, and then designers all over the world compete for your business. One of my first logos I ever had was created on 99 Designs. Really interesting. I have gone on to do other logos with design firms, but what I learned doing 99 Designs actually made me a little bit more in touch with the process. So you go on to places where you are able to crowdsource ideas like a 99 Designs, where you can connect with communities all over the world. Fiverr does this, right? A bunch of these crowdsourcing platforms offer talent all over the place, and you can just ask people to come up with proposals for stuff. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You learn, and then you say, okay, what do I want to go with? Finally, this is more for a corporate level thing, but open innovation. So this is when you have a public challenge or competition where people come together to try to submit some idea, a creative solution, something like that. So it's like, for example, if we had a company that's looking for the next big idea for their business, like say we're Coke or Pepsi, and we're like, what should we make next? What should we sell next? What do people want? Well, we could actually have an open call for ideas. People could submit them. And then the one that wins, we either fund it, if it's kind of like a venture-backed thing, or we buy it, or we come up with some sort of deal where we license some technology. There's a million ways to kind of play this game. You could also do like hackathons or things like that, startup weekends. But the idea is to just get a bunch of people who aren't your regular employees to brainstorm for you. Very powerful stuff. And you never know where it's going to go. Maybe all the ideas are trash and you do nothing with them, but just maybe, something really good comes out of it. And, people have done this. NASA's done this. Lego's done this. Like, big companies do this. So it is certainly something that you could try in your company. All right, that is my thinking on this topic. Try some of these things. I mean, it's a good way to get started, because once you kind of kick into creative mode, get some inspiration from others, then you can build on top of that. You don't have to start everything. Give it a try. If you have ideas, okay, I'm going to crowdsource from you right now. Reach out to me at letsconnect@patrickmcginnis.com, on Instagram at Patrick J. McGinnis, LinkedIn, Patrick McGinnis, or Twitter at PJ McGinnis. All right. We will see you on Thursday with another episode of FOMO Sapiens. Until then, take care of yourselves, FOMO Sapiens, and PatGPT, stop generating.
FOMO.
FOMO Sapiens is recorded in New York City. Theme music is by Mike McGinnis, and editing and post-production is by Josh Elstro. If you like today's show, please be sure to rate it and recommend it to your friends. And as always, you can find me at FOMOSapiens.com and at PatrickMcGinnis.com. To advertise on FOMO Sapiens, reach out to contact@FOMOSapiens.com.